Welcome to the Middle School Bookmarker Show. My name's Brianna.
And I'm Chris. We're teachers reading this middle school novel for the very first time. We hope you'll read it along with us and listen to our conversations about it.
This week we're covering Schools by Gordon Korman, and we just read chapters 19 and 20. So if you haven't read those chapters yet, go do that now.
Oh, and by the way, we're going to get this whole show wrapped up in just 11 minutes because 11 minutes is all you need to
get your school excited at the pep rally for the football game.
Wait, what's a pep rally? And for that matter, what's football?
Who cares as long as it gets us out of class?
All right, so we're starting off with chapter 19. We're back with Zach Powers, who is kind of the antagonist of the novel, the bad guy. He starts off the chapter by talking about how the end of the world is not going to come as expected by ice caps melting or volcanoes or asteroids or anything like that. But the real sign of the end of the world is that Cap is becoming one of the most popular kids in the grade.
Yeah, and I was really glad to actually get a Zach chapter because I think I said last episode we hadn't heard from him for a while, and that was really interesting because of how involved he'd been in kind of bringing Cap down, and then here Cap has skyrocketed to the top of the popular crowd.
And now Zach's got to step in and kind of fix the plan that he had set in motion a bunch of chapters ago.
Yeah, and Zach is mentioning how we learned about the checks the last couple of chapters that Mr. Kasigi has given Cap access to, and Zach just doesn't understand how Cap is just spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on all these different charities and all of these different things for the dance when he's like, I don't understand how this money is just coming from nowhere. Mr. Kasigi must be in on it.
And I think that thought's kind of planted there to keep it present in our minds, because I bet we're gonna crash into that at some point. I imagine that might be the climax of the story, is finding out, oh, we actually don't have the money to pay for all these things for the dance.
Absolutely. I think Kasigi, they say Kasigi's going to come back next week after his conference. I think there's going to be a big blow up.
Let's do a quick break right here. The secret word is helmet. And before we move on to the rest of the chapter, I do want to make a point, because it's going to become important, that Zach has this moment where he's in his head and he's talking about how all of his friends have turned against him, and he's beginning to feel a little isolated. And before I even read the rest of this chapter, I thought, well, that's interesting because he's kind of in the same position that Hugh is in, that Hugh is isolated from Cap now because Cap is becoming popular. We'll see where that goes. Brown, you want to pick up with what happened with the fancy special end chair in the cafeteria that's illuminated by sunlight?
Yeah, so Zach walks into the cafeteria. He's like, obviously still thinks himself king of the school, but somebody else is in his assigned seat. So it's the seat he sits in the cafeteria every day, and it's in the perfect position where it's near the windows but not too close, and at the end of the lunch period there's just enough sunlight coming in that shines on that one chair that makes it look like there's like a halo around the student sitting there. And so that's Zach's seat. And who's sitting there?
Well, and just before we move on to that, Zach feels like he's earned it. He's been working for this thing for a couple of years now. So that throne's illuminated, and he turns to the cafeteria and he sees Capricorn sitting there, and Zach also sees the rest of his friends there, not kicking Cap out of the chair. Lena's the only one that makes eye contact with him. Naomi is oblivious to Zach even being there. I think a couple of the other characters avert their eyes so they don't even look at Zach. But Zach's plan has really, really not worked out. He went from trying to set this kid up to be made fun of to this kid potentially taking some of his friends away from him.
Yeah, Cap has managed to get almost everyone in the school working on this dance, and it's kind of brought everyone together instead of dividing everyone like Zach was trying to do into different like cliques and groups of kids. And now it's like everybody has something in common, which is just really interesting to think about. And now Zach feels like he doesn't have any friends anymore and he's alone.
And there's a moment where he doesn't really know what to do, and so he steps away from the table where he was going to sit, and he slams into my favorite character, Hugh Winkleman. And I like there's a line in there where he talks about like how he's just earned the biggest wedgie of his life or something, but that doesn't end up happening because they both kind of share this moment where Hugh is staring at Cap, Zach is staring at his group of friends, and there is this connection where, oh wow, our friends have kind of evolved or moved to other people, and we are kind of left on the outside. And Zach has this one moment that I want to point out as a character, a huge characterization moment. Not that we need more information about Zach really kind of being a bad guy or selfish or however you want to describe it. But he has this line that says something like, when he's looking at Hugh, standing next to Hugh, I had something in common with this loser, and that had to be rock bottom. Man, that is a vile, disgusting thought. That Zach is being alienated by his friends, and in that moment, he still needs to spend that second thinking he's better than Hugh and comparing himself to it. I really hated that line, but that means the author did a great job, because if I really hate that bad guy, if I really hate that character, the author's doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, very, very true. I agree with you. I was very angry at Zach in that moment, but it was very fitting for his character. So at the same time, had to throw props to Gordon Korman there. So what happens with Zach and Hugh is they almost make a little bit of a peace treaty to take Cap down. And I know you had some thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I was really surprised. Like I said, I'm a little partial to Hugh, but I was surprised that Hugh turned on Cap so quickly and so easily. I can only imagine how alone and isolated and betrayed Hugh felt, and that probably fueled his decision. But I was just so surprised that all of a sudden, all it took was Zach, this kid who had wedgied him, who had given him swirlies and had alienated him for years now. Zach just says a couple little things, and Hugh must feel so bad that just those couple little things that Zach threw out there was enough to get Hugh to start diabolically plotting against Cap. And we're going to see the beginning of a diabolical plan next chapter when Cap takes over.
Right, so Cap starts the chapter by talking about how many names he's learned. At this point, he thinks he's learned well over 300 names from the yearbooks that we saw and using mnemonic devices, which is just like little memory tricks to kind of remembers people names. Like, oh, this person has a tattoo that's shaped like this. I think it was like a crab tattoo that reminded him of a specific crab constellation that reminded him of astronomy. So the kid's name was Ron.
And I think there was a wider kid that looked like a barrel. And I think his
name
was
Daryl.
Yep,
looks like a barrel. Yeah.
Who I think is our narrator for next chapter.
I think so too.
And by the way, if you didn't know about mnemonics and the way that Cap was studying the names and memorizing them, it is legit and it's a great way to study. If you can come up with little tricks like that, it's one of the best things, best ways for you to take info and get it in your brain permanently. So Cap's doing this mnemonics thing, and he notes that he's seeing less and less of Sophie, partly because she's practicing for the upcoming driving test, partly because Trigonometry in Tears is on reruns, and Sophie is not interested in the reruns, but Cap is. He's totally into it. So all these times that they were sharing together, driving and watching the show, are now gone because Sophie's busy. But they do make a point of saying that Sophie really, really does like the bracelet that she got from her dad, what was really Cap.
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting reveal when that's revealed, because I have a feeling that's going to happen right around the time we find out about the checks. Speaking about the checks, Cap thinks he's doing all the right things. He thinks he's doing a great job by giving this money to all these places and making people smile. And I want to be so happy for him for, like, making people smile, but I'm also, like, so just on the verge of pulling my hair out with frustration, because I just want somebody to tell him, like...
I'm cringing hard. I'm cringing every time he talks about this.
Especially because as educators, we know a little bit more about school budgets, and it's just like,
Poor kid. Although, you know what, I bet this kind of thing has happened before. Like, maybe not recently, but I imagine in the history of school and school government, there's been some kid that's made a huge mistake like this, paid for some ridiculous pizza fountain or something. Ooh, pizza fountain. There's a good idea. Anyway, moving on. Pep rally for the football game. How much time we got? Okay, we got about a minute and a half to wrap up these last couple points. So there's a pep rally happening, and like we mentioned earlier, Cap doesn't really know what a pep rally is. He doesn't even really understand what football is, but his friend Hugh is helping him figure out what's going on, helping him. So Hugh brings him out into the locker room, and he says, you don't need to know anything. You're the president, though. You got to put these pads on. You got to run out there. You just got to get everybody excited. Oh, by the way, put this jersey on. And then he shoves him out into the crowd.
Right. And so Cap has no idea what's going on. He sees people in the other uniform start running towards him, and he gets all confused, and he looks down and he sees that he's wearing the opposing team's gear. So his own school is coming after him on the football field.
And what's brutal, we missed one little thing that we have to stop on, is Cap noticed that Hugh was acting a little weird, little strangely as Hugh was setting him up and kind of sending him out there to get crushed. Cap says, "Is there anything wrong?" And Hugh doesn't say anything. Hugh says something like, "Is everything okay?" Well, is everything ever okay with me? So Hugh is completely aware of what he's doing to Cap. Oh, it's so brutal to see it coming, but I bet we're going to find out what happens next chapter with Daryl. All right, we are at the end of our episode. Brianna, you want to wrap us up?
Yep, so if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, ring the notification bell, and be sure to subscribe. We're going to read chapters 21 and 22 for next time.
We'll see you then. Adios.